You're live.
All right. Afternoon, everybody. How's everyone doing today? Good, good. Awesome, awesome. Let's go. It's right about 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. We're going to be doing our webinar here, and it's all about the fun of property taxes in and around the San Antonio region. So it's encompassing, we'll call it 5 or 6 different counties. And we have an expert here today, Mr. Sam Lyles. He's going to be talking through kind of what they do in the property tax world. So, before we get too into it, everybody knows I like to BS for a few minutes because nobody shows up on a webinar on time. It's just how it works. You get troubles logging in, people are driving, people are getting settled in. So I get to give you a couple, 3 minutes of fun chit chat time. And I get to poke on the team a little bit. Okay. Stacy, you get to go first because you hate talking. And somebody just turned the big 30. Tell us about your birthday.
I did. I turned 30 on August 1st. So a new decade. It's been fun so far. Anticipated because I'm on the lower end of my friend group for turning 30. So I feel like I've been anticipating it for a while, but I got to spend my birthday weekend in Key West, did some snorkeling, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, little side note on that is Stacy's become very, very good at flying standby. So you may have to explain to the audience what that means in your terms. Go ahead.
My best friend's husband works for Delta, so he gets free flights for her, and then he has like companion passes. So I've got one of those passes. So we just fly standby. We pretty much show up to the airport. We aim for a certain flight to get on and hope there's seats. And if there's seats, we get to sit down. And the fun fact is, usually they'll bump you up to first class if there's first class open. So I had a first class flight going there.
It's a killer.
Free
Score.
meal, free drinks. Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, so the greatest thing in on this side of the world is both my kids started as high school seniors today. Actually, yesterday technically, but they got up super early and left for like a senior sunrise thing. They had donuts and coffee and they left the house at 6. So I said, okay, today is picture day. Today is their second day of school, both high school seniors. Drake is 18, Cora is 17, seniors at Champion High School here in Bernie. And they started their last year here. So I got a good picture. I got a good, them driving off and they're waving at, all that good stuff. So yeah, the two seniors, and then Sam and I were just talking. Sam's an A&M grad, and both the kids are potentially interested. Drake is for sure interested in going to A&M, and Cora is wicked smart and can probably go wherever she wants. That's the thing. So Sam, let's introduce you, and you can give us a couple minutes of who you are, what you do. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brad. So my name's Samuel Lyles. I'm the Director of Business Development for Home Tax Shield. Home Tax Shield is a property tax consulting service, but we actually started off as a software company. Essentially, what the founders did is all the protesting, 85% of Texans don't actually protest their property taxes, and they saw this huge need for it. But to actually make money in this business on the residential side, you have to be able to scale up using technology or it's just not worth it. And the property tax system is really arbitrary. So they wanted to address this. So when we launched back in 2020, we were actually selling software to different companies, which we do still do. But in 2022, we wanted to see if we could help that 85% of Texas homeowners. And so we launched and it's just absolutely exploded since then. Um, our advantage is that we were the first ones in the market to use AI in regards to protesting. But essentially, what we do is we build computers for every single county that reverse engineers the county's algorithm and spits that out against them. So when we go into protest, we go in person on every single case, and we are bringing the most superior evidence, the data package when we go to protest, and it helps us get results. We're almost always getting reductions on every single protest.
Couple key points I want to bring in is you said 85% go unprotested. And we talked about this in the beginning is a lot of times they just sneak it in on you. Okay. Because we all have busy lives. We're not paying attention. Okay. Here comes a letter. All right. Hey, you got a letter in the mail from the county. Okay. Throw it in the corner or whatever. Don't look at it. And you don't potentially catch it because we saw what happened during COVID. We saw a severe spike. We saw the property taxes just go through the roof through a lot of different, lot of around the San Antonio region. And like you said, they were kind of banking that people are just kind of asleep at the wheel. and they're not truly paying attention. And the other thing you brought up was it's arbitrary, it's subjective, it's they almost placate you. So if you go in and protest or you send in a form, they're like, yeah, I'll give you 500 bucks a year off your property taxes. And that's where you're talking about. There's not enough meat on the bone there for any sort of a business to go in and say, I'm going to charge you X of whatever we save you. And all they do is give you 500 bucks. So it's a lot more to that. And this is where you guys have come into play. We see this all the time with our investor clients is if they're not paying attention, they're out of state, they're out of country, they get these assessments. Maybe they don't even get them. Like maybe they don't
Yep.
even get them in the mail. And all of a sudden their taxes go up from, it might go up 2, 3, 10 grand a year. And this is where you may come in and tell some stories on this because it's all timeline dependent. So let's go over the timeline just in Bexar County, and other counties may differ, but for the most part, they're pretty consistent in and around the state of Texas. Is right around the April, May timeframe we get, or excuse me, first of the year notices come out. Is that about right?
So the notices actually come out April 1st. The
Okay.
property taxes are due January 31st. And then the deadline to protest is May 15th.
Yeah, so it gives you about a 6 week window there to really kind of focus and decide, okay, is it worth trying to argue our property taxes? And as we all know, if you're in sales, right, Melanie, it's a double-edged sword. So if you fight your property taxes and you think you have a $300,000 home and you go to the county and say, well, my home's only 250, right? And they're like, okay, great. It's 250. Now you go to sell it. No, no, no. My home's worth 300,000, right? But the county says it's worth 250. So it's like you win some, you lose some. So if you have no intent to sell within a couple of years, maybe you let it ride because it is kind of a what we call as realtors, real estate agents, a benchmark of value. And that could be arguable in itself. Is it really a benchmark of value? Not to me, but to the squirrels and the bean counters on the county level, they look at it and say, yeah, we think your home or your business is worth X. And so it is a double-edged sword. Now, back to what you guys do. You talk about through that AI algorithm stuff. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So with this system, there's two different ways that you can go in and protest. You can have your sales argument or your equity argument. Since I'm an attorney by trade, if we have a county, typically a smaller one that gives us issues, they send me in. So I've used these arguments and I always use both. Typically, sales are the best. Now, when I first bought my home, I protested myself. This was before I joined Home Tax Shield. I was a prosecutor at the Bexar County DA's office at the time. And I brought all my evidence. I had photos. I got a CMA. And of course, the county didn't look at anything. They have their own algorithm. And essentially, if you don't speak that language, they're not going to entertain you. I've had friends say they brought binders and the county won't even look at it because they have their own system. However, since RAI is reverse engineering their algorithm, our evidence looks like a CMA, but each property we're using has 40 to 50 different adjustments. And the idea is the property that you're protesting, you want the comps to be as close to 100% possible when you're making that argument. And it's very persuasive to the county. So, for example, when I go in and I have a property, I'll have, let's say, 5 different properties that have been adjusted to the value to make it as close to the subject property. And the CAD just inserts those properties, and I watch the value just go down and down and down.
Yeah, I got to think that when these counties are so used to seeing businesses like yourself come in, especially the really good ones like y'all, that they give you instant clout. Like, oh, okay, well, they think the home is worth something around this neighborhood. They must be pretty close versus just, Joe Schmo or homeowner off the street. They're trying to, get their property taxes down. Everyone knows why. It's just no one wants to spend the money. And it's one of those things where you walk into a courtroom and they just give you instant respect because they know you're going to have a feasible argument and be able to present it in a way that they can understand. Because in the end of the day, they're people and they, don't necessarily want to get into a giant argument where it goes to a panel or you file suit or go further. But they also know that they're going to respect the work you bring in because of the background you have. So what have you seen in some of those examples? We talked about this before we started, is I'd love to hear a few stories because that kind of illustrates and paints the picture of what your service does.
Right. So, and when you're talking about going in and having credibility with the county, it does go a very long way. I constantly hear the county say they've never seen the evidence that we bring in. But the other thing is, we are not going to go in and BS the county. Our data that we bring is fair. Our motto is that every Texan should pay their fair property tax value. And most of the time, they're not. So that's how we get our reductions. Because it's arbitrary, especially for investors who are out of state or out of country, you might not even get your notice. Some might not know that you can even protest, since 85% of Texans are protesting. So there's a huge gap in education. And for us, when we go in, all of our agents have around 25 years experience. They're local to that county. We always hire inside the county. And so they already have the relationships. So that with the data allows us to almost always get reductions. But an example, I'll give you, even for my home, my personal example. I told you I went in and protest. I protest every single year. I have not once received my appraisal notice. They are sending it to my lender. And
Wow.
if I, wasn't aware of this subject, I would have no idea. I would just see that my mortgage keeps going up every year. Instead, since I have protested, I've been getting aggregate savings every single year, to where last year my lender sent me a check for thousands of dollars because they anticipate your property taxes rising, and that goes into your escrow. Now, when I mentioned it's arbitrary, some counties, they will actually have people drive by your home. But nowadays, of course, they're using drones. I had a realtor here in San Antonio who had a property that he was building on, and he only had the frame, didn't have a roof, doors, anything like that, just the frame. And they assessed his property or appraised it at the full value, even though he just started construction. So his property taxes, I think, quadrupled, something like that. And we were able to go in and get them reduced for him. But since they're not looking in detail at every single property, and that's why it's so important to go in and protest, because the only way you know that you're getting fair property tax is if you're protesting. There's no other way to figure it out.
Let's talk through the appeals process, because that's a big part of it. And I'll start with a what I know from experience, and very much like you guys, uh, bought a property years ago. I think I paid 305,000 for it, and that very same, within a couple 3 months, I got the county assessment. It was 310,000. Okay, I just bought it like 305. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
And again, this is years ago. I'm like, how can it be assessed more than I just bought it for, when every other home in the neighborhood is at least 20, 40, $50,000 assessed less? So I had to go protest, and you sent in the first form. This is kind of what you guys help with. You may send in an electronic and or written form, but then I actually had to go down in person and appeal to one person. Like, I sat at this one person's desk, okay, and it was, a clutter, a nightmare. And this guy was an appraiser, okay, an appraiser by trade. And he said, well, I can offer you this, or you can go to a three-person panel. And this is, again, Bexar County specific. And so I said, well, I'd like to opt in for the three-person panel. So I showed up like 2 weeks or 3 weeks later to the three-person panel. I made my argument, and they dropped my assessment down another 25 or 30,000, ultimately saving like 12 or 1,500 bucks a year. Not life-changing money, but it was kind of the principle of the matter. Like, hold on, I just bought this place, and you're assessing it for higher than what I paid for it. And that was really the rub for me. How does it work now, with the modern changes of AI and all the computers and everything else? What do you see out there?
So I'm still seeing the county acting like counties. They're still, we're dealing with the government here, and they make a lot of mistakes. We catch them all the time. Uh, with so the larger counties like Bexar County, they are starting to use more technology. More people are protesting every single year. They can't actually keep up, which helps us when we're filing, tens of thousands of homes in Bexar County. We have a lot of leverage on that, but they're not innovating enough to actually keep up with this. At the end of the day, you're getting an arbitrary appraised value, and then you're dealing with a human government employee. And so unless you really go in and know your stuff, you might not get a good result. And just like you said, like the fact that you even went in on that property, that's taking the first step. But again, 85% of Texans aren't even doing that. And when that many Texans aren't protesting, that means their appraisal values are going up. And essentially, it's just hurting all Texas homeowners.
Yeah, it is. And we've heard several things from investors on, why they're selling, because we get investors that sell and we offer the opportunity to sell with us. And a lot of times they just say, well, the property's not cash flowing. Okay, you make a point. So let's talk through this. Have you ever fought your property taxes? Well, no. Okay, so your property is assessed at 300 and we think we can sell it for 300. I just like that number. I know it's over and over. But, had they been protesting or keeping up with it for years, the property could be assessed at 250 and then the value is 300. I'm going to make a point, so bear with me. If we've had investors say, well, we're not cash flowing, what does cash flow mean to that investor? It could be $100 a month, which is 1,200 a year, which is not over the top money when you start talking property taxes at that level to save 1,200 a year or a couple thousand, 5,000 a year. You've seen probably big numbers like that. And this is where your service comes into play. So would you recommend our investors to do this on an annual basis, just to even potentially have you submit an inquiry? What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. So again, the only way to know you're paying a fair value is to protest. But when you go in and protest, you're getting aggregate savings. So as long as you keep that value low, you're saving more and more money every single year because that's your new starting point. So you get your appraisal notice, you protest, that becomes the assessed value. That's what you're paying taxes on. And that's what you're always going to want as low as possible. And when you're talking about cash flow, I'm actually currently looking at selling or renting my current home because we want to move. And I am having to look at that as well. But having gone in and protest, like I said, for my home personally, like my lender's sending me money. So I protested every single year and I've got a reduction every single year. Now that doesn't always happen, but no one in my neighborhood is protesting for some reason. And I've actually handed out flyers because I know it'll help my protest, trying to get the community on board because it does help, my argument. But it is, even if you go in, if you're paying fair value, you might not get a reduction, but at least you're paying fair value.
Yeah, I got to put you in the spot here. So, is there an average savings that your clients receive, once they decide to protest?
Yeah, there is. And it differs because you have regular homeowners, they have their homestead, they have that 10% cap protection. And then you have investors who don't have that homestead protection. There was a 20% protection that went into effect, I believe it's 2024, but that is expiring this year. So on a regular homeowner, I believe our savings is somewhere around average 375. And then with our investors, it's closer to 500. And of course,
Okay.
it depends on the value of the home as well.
Yeah. And here's a quick public service announcement. The PSA is if you are owning a home and you are the homestead exemption and you have to go somewhere else and we rent it for you, we've seen it where the county will do a clawback. They will
Yep.
come in and say, your home was actually not a homestead for the last 2 or 3 or 10 years because you never changed the homestead. The next place you moved to, you might have rented. You might have gone to DC and you rented for 3 years. And since you left, you rented the home out. The county gets wind of that through a sale. They will do a clawback. We've seen this with
Yep.
clients where they had to go in and write checks for 3, 4, 5, 6,000 bucks to the county because they removed their homestead exemption from 2002, or that's a long time, let's say 2022 forward. And all of a sudden they owe 3 years of that difference between a homestead and your regular assessed value. So that's just a good word to the wise. If they leave, make sure your homestead exemption clicks off or goes with you to the next place if you're going to buy something there. And that's also an IRS thing too. But we've seen clients like, oh, I forgot to remove my homestead exemption. Well, here comes your clawback, and it's either going to come at closing or they're just going to send you a bill. So that's my side note on that one. A couple of things I want to bring up to you now is kind of walk us through the process of engaging with you guys. I mean, let's say all of our clients, I think, would be wise to say, you know what, I need to protest my property taxes annually. It should be just a thing that they do. How does the process work?
Yeah, so it's really simple. They can log on to hometaxshield.com. It takes less than 2 minutes to sign up. Our system automatically pulls up the address and all the data that goes with it. And essentially, after they sign up, they sit back, relax, and we take care of the rest. Every once in a while, like if it lends to a commercial property, we might need a rent roll or something. But just for residential, like I said, photos, some closing statements can sometimes help. They also have the option to actually upload all those in their portal, and they can sign up as many homes as they want. But for me, I signed up, I think 2023, 20, yeah, I signed up in 2023. I've never gone in and changed anything, and I get a reduction every time. I don't even have to think about it, which is nice.
Yeah. Because you think appraisers catch all this. I mean, physical appraisers for banks and stuff. I've seen it where they don't. I've seen it
Yep.
where, you put a pool in, for example, and the assessment comes back and the assessment is lower than what it was without the pool. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. It's backwards. So,
Yep.
again, hometaxshield.com, and they can register their home. Uh, I'm trying to think what else I can ask you. So what am I forgetting to ask? What more can you tell us?
Well, I have a quick question for Sam,
Oh
just
yeah,
for
great.
funsies. What's been the most amount of money that you've saved a single family homeowner on their assessment?
Good question.
Right, for funsies. That's a good one.
So let's see.
Can I
Off the
add a
top of my
second
head,
layer? Like, do you have a single family and a multifamily? Am I asking too much here?
so on the multifamily, we're talking really big numbers. On the single family, maybe the most I've seen, and I don't monitor all of this. That's not even possible because we have so many properties. But I've seen over 10,000. I know there's someone in my family who uses home tax shield. They average around 1,500 every year.
That's significant money. That's cash. That's the difference of your property cash flowing or it just kind of, being stagnant. And that also pays for our services. In theory, if we could save you,
Mhm.
a hundred something dollars a month, that'd pay for our management fees. So it's well worth somebody wanting to apply for that system. And yeah, I go back to this again. If you don't pay attention, you fall asleep at the wheel on these things, the county will just flat out spank you. And we've seen it where, especially during COVID, they were, the regular single family homes in the 2, 3, 4 range, they were getting assessed, 20, 40, $50,000 higher in one chunk. I know there's a percent limit. I get that, but they were maxing it, right? They were maxing it. And if you weren't paying attention, you missed out because also something people should know. Can you go back and fight from 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Once that window is closed, I mean, you're basically, that's it, right?
Yeah. So May 15th is the deadline. After that, the counties are going to make an exception unless you received your notice within the last 30 days. What you can do for if you have like your actual residence and you reside there, you can go back on your homestead 2 years. But like you mentioned, the county can also go back 2 years and claw back. And that we work with property managers all over Texas, and I see so many homesteads on investment properties, and it's just most people don't think about taking it off, and so it stays there. And the counties are now becoming more educated about this, and they're making people reapply for the homestead now. That's how they're trying to catch it. But if you're not living there and they catch you, yeah, you're gonna owe some taxes for sure.
Yeah, there's also another good PSA inside of that is make sure that you file for all the homestead exemptions you get on your personal home. If you have a veteran status, if you have your homestead status, all the different things that are out there. Sometimes they give you breaks for just being like a school teacher or a cop or something. So make sure you inquire with the county. This is something that RentWerx is going to push pretty hard come Q1 of 2027 is making sure that all of our clients are aware that this service is available to them and that they can get signed up and then that we'll help them if they need to get signed up. Is that how you think it could go as far as working with RentWerx and how we can work together in the future?
Yeah, and we can even make it easier on your owners. We have a way for property managers to get connected that gets their owners signed up without any effort.
Yeah. I think, Melanie, we need to devise a system to where we can give the owners the opportunity to just make this automatic with us. And they can opt out if they don't want to, of course. I mean, they can always opt out, but we should make it more of an automatic system and get them some sort of, feedback, some sort of like notice, because if we're paying attention, that's really a good part of our service for the owners. And some of these folks, I mean, we've had clients that are, I swear to God, they're like secret squirrels, FBI, CIA stuff. We can't even get to them if we had to. Like, hey, we have a
Yeah.
we have a maintenance request that needs your approval specifically, and we can't reach them at all because they're on a ship, a submarine, deployed, whatever,
Yeah.
undercover. We don't know where these folks are, and I think this is something we want to automate for all of our owners going forward. So this is something you can help us with, Sam.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're totally right. I see it all the time. There'll be an investor respond to an email about a year later asking about the prior year because they disappear.
Right.
So would we need a specific power of attorney to act on our client's behalf, just to even submit a form, like specific
No.
to this particular service?
So the two people who can protest on behalf of their owners are attorneys and property managers. You have authority already to file these protests.
Yeah, I assumed we did because that property management agreement is kind of all encompassing, honestly.
Hmm.
So if this gives us authorization to do that, we'll have to figure out a system to make sure we get this going for all of our owners, especially like Q1, right? Like you said April or May.
May 15th is the deadline. Appraisals come out April 1st.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
And that
Q1, you're
is that a
tracking.
yeah, is that a public notice or just directly to the owner?
So, I mean, it's public information, but the notice goes to the owner. You can look on anybody's property on the county website, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that before. I don't know if it launches April 1st, but you could go to bcad.org and
Mhm.
see a 27, assessed value come Q1 of next year. They'll put that out there, or April 1st, whatever the date is. But that will help us track all of our owners' properties. And I'm glad to hear that. So we're gonna make a strong campaign coming up in Q1 to push this to all of our owners, make sure that they're aware of what's going on. They can also probably go into the system where they ensure the county has their address of record, because of course they have the property address, but good luck getting mail if you're investor Joe and you live in,
Mhm.
out of state. And
Yep.
well, they've been sending notices to the property address and they don't know where the owner's address is. And this is something they can go into the county records, I'm assuming, and ensure that that address is updated. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Um, we need to talk cost. Okay, what does it cost the
Mhm.
owner to do something like this?
So it's a 30% success fee. How we approach success fees is actual tax savings in the investor's pocket. So let's say if we save $1,000, the success fee is 300, and then you get to keep, the 700 is your profit essentially.
Yeah, okay, well, that's pretty fair. Not as harsh as some of the other attorneys out there, the ambulance chasing attorneys that'll charge you 60%, right? But they're going after the insurance companies. You guys are just helping the average homeowner out. It's very, very, very cool.
Yeah, we have the technology to keep our costs low.
Yeah, that's neat. That's a big part of it because all right, another question. Digging back, going backwards a little bit. Like, how deep do you guys go into a protest? Would you go into like sending a real live actual person to a panel, or how deep would you be willing to go if the owner was willing to pay more, for example? Like, let's go down that road a little bit.
So we actually don't make our owners pay more. We're going in, we're protesting. When when I protest for us, I go in person. Typically, I can get it settled with the appraiser. If not, we're going to the review board. And every year we usually have a few lawsuits that we file on behalf of our clients, but we don't charge extra for that. This is a full service.
Oh, okay, that's good. So if you think the county's really egregious in what they're trying to assess a homeowner, you're like, you know what? F you, we're filing suit. Let's go time.
Mhm.
And then it doesn't cost them anything further.
Correct.
Great service. Wow, very impressive. I didn't realize you guys did that. See, this is more of a discovery call for you and I, Sam, to kind of BS, find out, where you went to college and all that good stuff and talk about our dogs and Stacy's 30th birthday and Melanie's Frenchie. I mean, this is good stuff that we're going on.
That
So
it
what else can you
is.
tell us? What do we need to know?
Well, I think that's about it. I'll follow up with y'all with an email, just how you can connect to make this really easy for your owners. But our process is really simple.
Okay. All right, go through that one more time. Hometaxshield.com is how that our owners can reach you. I would
Correct.
tell all the owners in closing this that pay attention in the first quarter of every year. We'll start a campaign to ensure that they are aware of the property taxes coming up and kind of what the process is to file the, all the paperwork they need to just make sure it's a protest. And it's probably not a bad thing to do every year like you do. And keep those property taxes a little bit lower for everybody. And in addition, imagine we have several multi-property owners, MPOs. And if we're taking them to scale, they have 4 units or 40 units, whatever the number is.
Yep.
You take that $1,000 to scale at 4 units a year, and that's real savings. That's, a bunch of improvements that can go into the property, et cetera. So this is something that we don't want people to ignore. And I'm glad we're kind of catching up more on this. In the past, we really haven't pushed a lot of this because for all different various reasons, we're always worried about pushing vendors on our owners, because what if the vendor's no good? Okay.
Yeah.
We don't want to have egg on our face by to say, Joe Schmo, the painter, is super good. Here's his information, use them. And Joe Schmo, the painter, doesn't show up, and it reflects poorly on us. I got burned in that when I was a rookie, and I'm very hesitant to do that, but we have a lot of confidence in you guys. You're NARPA members. You're strong contributors to the National Association of Residential Property Managers, which is what we're a part of. You guys you've been on the scene for a while. And so this is go time for us to start using you more.
Yeah, I appreciate the vote of confidence. Yeah, we were actually the 2025 Affiliate of the Year for San Antonio NARPM. So we love that organization.
Very good. Very good. So did we get any questions in the queue, guys? No questions I see. Okay, cool.
No, I answered the one about the most tax. What was the most tax savings? You got it.
Yeah.
And Melanie, actually, now that I think about it, and I didn't want to say anything because I'm not sure if it was multi-unit, but one of Brian Felt's owners saved over 20,000 last year.
Nice. Well, we all know and love Brian Felt.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
That's
Brad,
significant.
Brian,
Yeah.
forefront.
Oh,
You get up in the range. I mean, we forget that a lot of the properties that we manage are not, they can be up there 750, $1 million. It's not like we manage, the crack houses that are worth 50 grand. We manage a lot of good stuff. And if you're talking to scale, if something's assessed at $1 million and it really should be assessed at 800,000, I mean, geez, that's a lot. That's, what's 3% of 200,000 in saving? That's 60 grand, or whatever that number is. I can't do math in my head, but I should make Stacy do math in her head. Stacy, she's like,
her favorite. Her favorite.
What's 3% of 200,000? Stacy, go. She's like, not.
I would help, but I'm an Aggie. I can't help.
It's $6,000. Okay, break that, divide by 12. That's 500 a month. That's a pretty significant number. And she hates when I do that to her. And I do that because she's a finance major, right? And so you figure it's just math in her head. It's a clockwork. But anyway, that's a pretty good story about one of Felt's clients. And that is, again, a testament of if you're asleep at the wheel and those property taxes get assessed, you don't necessarily miss out, because Sam's team can come in and say, you know what, you've assessed these property taxes 1, 2, 3, 5 years way too high in a row. We think it should be adjusted significantly lower, and here's why. So it's never too late. It's just a good idea to pay attention to it every year.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't imagine not protesting. It makes no sense.
Yeah. Now that we see it, how easy it is, for sure. You'll be seeing me sign up here pretty quick. All right, Sam.
Sound good.
Any last parting comments you want to throw at us?
In case I didn't mention it, you talked about the sales and rent. One of the things you want to do is make sure that your assessed taxable value is as low as possible and your market value is as high as possible, because that's what you can sell it for. And what I tell realtors all the time is, if I'm going to buy a home, I want to see if they've been protesting, what the assessed value is. That is a value add. It's not going to indicate the sales price to me. That's what I know I'm going to have to pay every single year. So again, you want to keep that assessed value as low as possible, your market value as high as possible. If you can get it double, that is like the absolute sweet spot.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
Question: where does somebody find that information? Like protests and what is that a public thing or is that a private thing?
So for Bexar County, it's bcad.org, and they can put in either their name, or if they're an LLC, or their address, and it should pull it up.
So it's
Yep.
public information. It's not a private thing. You protest it. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
shows you the last 5 years value.
And every county has their own particular website. I mean, it's make sure you're not searching for Kendall County, Tennessee. You know what I mean? Because you do have to. I've been doing that before. I'm like, oh, what's going on in Comal County? And you're digging in. Or like, wait a minute, this is in Florida. Like, okay, sometimes you got to pay attention. But BCAD's a pretty easy one to remember, and it's all public knowledge. Now, the only rumors that we hear, again, this is all rumors. Sam and I talked about this a little bit ago before we started, is are they going to remove property taxes? Boy, wouldn't that be a windfall? That would be everyone's dream in the state of Texas to remove property taxes. It's a double-edged sword, everybody, because they're going to spike your sales tax. So you think, okay, cool, I don't pay any property tax. Well, guess what? Here's 15% sales tax on everything you buy. So they're going to get you somewhere. The property taxes are supposed to go to the schools. The school board is a big part of what's assessed. It's over 1%. The average around the region here is around 2.8 to 3% on average. It varies per county, municipality. It varies by that because, for example, our office is in Chavano Park, but it's still a San Antonio address. So we're getting assessed Chavano Park emergency services, okay,
Yep.
versus San Antonio emergency services. So it varies by municipality just inside the same county. And it gets complicated and they do it for a reason, right? It's all to throw off the user.
Every entity is going to get their piece of the pie. Bear County, Judge Sakai actually said 80% of their revenue comes from property taxes. And we are very involved in the legislature. And if property taxes went away, theoretically, we would love that. Like, we're here to fight against it. But you're absolutely correct. Either you're doing an income tax or a sales tax. And in the last few years, counties have what we call rolled values. And essentially what they're doing is not making an increase. Tarrant County last year sent a letter to their owners saying, hey, we're not going to increase your value, but don't blame us because these other taxing entities are going to increase their rates, which are set in October, and we have no control over it. But even with it being a slower year, this last year, we're going to have the best reductions of any year we've ever had.
That's good to hear. And this is also one ties into something, Melly and I have talked about 100 times is, every year we do renewals for our tenants. And we go to the owners and say, you know what, it's probably a good idea to maybe get a little bit more rent this year. You don't have to try to kill the tenant, but keep in mind your insurance goes up and your property taxes goes up every year, no matter what you do. So, because we get owners that feel guilty about charging more in rent. I get that. The tenants are taking good care of the property. We want to take care of good tenants. We want renewals. We want renewals. But the other side of that is, remember, Mr. Homeowner, that your property taxes are going to go up and your insurance for sure is going to go up. And passing that cost along is not unheard of. You're not being a bad person. It's just the cost is what the cost is. So don't be afraid to raise the rent a little bit because the tenants are happy to pay it. They understand property taxes just as much. They understand insurance just as much. And so we always have to, it's not a fight with the owners, but it's more like a discussion point because we get a lot of owners that say, no, just leave their rent alone. Well, by our procedure, we raise the rent by a percentage every year, no matter what. Because again, we have owners that we never hear from. Okay, this is part of our service. They're gone, they're downrange, they're doing stuff. So every year we raise the rent historically on an annual renewal basis, just a little bit to kind of keep them in line with inflation of taxes and insurance. And so it's a long discussion point because we scratch our head like, why wouldn't the owner raise the rent $100 a year? You know what I mean? Something a month, whatever the number is. Why wouldn't they do that when their property taxes and their insurance went up? And so you don't want to be taken advantage of for being Mr. Nice Guy in that regard. Everybody understands there's a cost of thing.
Yeah, you have to protect the bottom line for the investors.
Yeah, for sure. Sam, this has been a fantastic webinar. Really appreciate you coming on. Expect us to use more of your services coming up in the future and appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about this. Any parting comments?
No, just thanks for having me. I love helping educate people on property taxes. I'm kind of a nerd like that. Don't want to talk about it, but I'm more than happy to.
I appreciate it. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.